Welcome to Royal Secret, to the man who has stood beside me through it all. My friend, my love, my Frederik. The words echoed through the grand halls of Amalienborg Palace like a secret melody only the most devoted hearts could understand. This wasn't just a birthday toast. It wasn't a polished royal speech scripted for headlines. No, this was something deeper, something raw, something real. On the night Crown Queen Mary of Denmark stood before an audience of nobles, statesmen, and her own children, her voice trembled not with nerves, but with love. In a country where monarchy is tradition and protocol is everything, Queen Mary did the unthinkable. She spoke from the heart. And what followed wasn't just applause, it was a wave of emotion that swept across the Kingdom of Denmark, melting even the iciest of skeptics. Her tribute to Prince Frederik on his 57th birthday wasn't simply romantic, it was a rare public window into a love story that began in secret, survived oceans, scandals, and expectations, and is now being celebrated before the eyes of the world. This is the story of Queen Mary's unforgettable birthday speech to Prince Frederik. But it's also the story of their journey, from a bar in Sydney to the heart of Denmark's monarchy. And it raises one question. Is Queen Mary not just a royal consort, but the true emotional anchor of the Danish crown? Let's begin. On May 26, 2025, Denmark didn't just mark another royal birthday. It witnessed a transformation. Prince Frederik, the once shy heir turned king-in-waiting, turned 57. And though birthdays in the Danish royal household are often laced with tradition, family portraits, balcony appearances, and subtle nods to the past, this year's celebration felt unmistakably different. Because this time, it wasn't about him alone. It was about the woman beside him, Queen Mary, Denmark's first Australian-born royal consort, and now, arguably, its most beloved. She stood before the glittering crowd gathered at the Royal Theatre in Copenhagen, clutching a cream envelope and a nervous smile. There was a brief silence. Then she looked at her husband of 21 years, paused, and began to speak. "Frederik, my man, my anchor, my home." With those words, Queen Mary shattered every rule of royal detachment. Her voice cracked. The crowd held its breath. And just like that, what was meant to be a ceremonial tribute turned into a deeply moving declaration of love. A wife, a queen, a woman honoring the man who walked with her through decades of public scrutiny and private triumph. But to truly understand why this speech was so powerful, we must go back to the beginning. It was the 2000 Sydney Olympics. Mary Donaldson was a young advertising executive, enjoying a night out with friends in a packed pub. She had no idea that across the bar stood the man who would one day change her life, and hers, his. Prince Frederik of Denmark was in town incognito, traveling with the Danish delegation. No royal fanfare, no guards in sight, just a charming, mysterious stranger with piercing eyes and a quiet confidence. They talked, they laughed, they connected, and they kept in touch. What followed was a love story almost too romantic to be real. Long-distance letters, secret trips, paparazzi invasions, and eventually, a royal engagement that made global headlines. Yet, through it all, Mary Donaldson never lost her voice. She brought a distinctly modern energy to the centuries-old Danish court. She learned the language, embraced the customs, and committed herself fully to her new country, all while fiercely protecting her identity as a woman, a mother, and a partner. So, when she stood before the nation on her husband's 57th birthday, the depth of her words wasn't just shaped by sentiment. It was shaped by history, and pain, and triumph. Royal watchers and body language experts often try to decode the unspoken moments between royal couples. The hand on the back, the shared glance, the subtle squeeze. But Queen Mary gave the world no room for interpretation. She made it crystal clear. "You have been my man from day one," she said, her voice soft but unwavering. "And through every storm, every challenge, every joy, you've remained just that, my man." The phrase went viral, instantly. My man. It trended on Danish social media platforms within minutes. Memes, tweets, and emotional tributes flooded the internet. And for once, it wasn't scandal or controversy surrounding a royal event, it was raw, unscripted love. One Danish commentator wrote, "For a moment, it felt like Queen Mary was all of us. A partner, a woman, standing in front of the world and saying, 'This is the person I chose, and I choose him still.'" And Prince Frederik, he didn't try to mask his reaction. He smiled, then teared up, then reached across the table to squeeze Mary's hand. Their children, Prince Christian, Princess Isabella, and the twins, Prince Vincent and Princess Josephine, looked on. The next generation of Danish royalty witnessing the foundation upon which their legacy is built. Not just titles and duty, but love. To the world, Queen Mary and Prince Frederik often appear poised and perfect. But the reality, as insiders have long whispered, hasn't always been a fairy tale. There were years of pressure, especially after Mary's entry into the royal household. Royal courtiers allegedly raised eyebrows about her commoner status. European tabloids speculated about Frederik's readiness for the throne. Rumors of internal rifts swirled, especially when Mary began taking a more active public role. But through it all, the couple remained a united front. Queen Mary spearheaded initiatives in mental health, sustainability, and women's rights. Prince Frederik continued his work as a sports ambassador and cultural figure. Their bond, despite the pressures of royal life, only grew stronger. And now, in 2025, Queen Mary is not just a consort. She's the emotional compass of a monarchy preparing for generational change. Which is why her speech felt like a passing of the torch, not just to their children, but to the public. A moment of reflection, a moment of pride, a moment of vulnerability. Following the public tribute at the Royal Theatre in Copenhagen, the celebration moved behind palace walls. But what happened next was anything but typical. Normally, royal birthday dinners are quiet affairs, an intimate family meal, a select guest list, and very little press coverage. But on this particular night, Queen Mary and Prince Frederik opened the doors of Amalienborg to a broader circle. Not just aristocrats and foreign dignitaries, but friends, colleagues, and long-standing supporters of the royal couple were invited. Why? Because this wasn't just about age. It was about legacy. The main dining room of the palace was transformed into a warm, candlelit haven, deep reds and royal golds adorning the table, photographs of the couple from over the years tucked tastefully into flower arrangements. Each guest received a personal note penned by either Frederik or Mary. And in the center of it all, the couple sat side by side. Not across from one another. Not flanked by staff or protocol officers. Just together. "We wanted tonight to feel like us," Queen Mary reportedly said to one guest. "Not royal, not formal. Just us." And that, us, was on full display when King Frederik, known for being somewhat shy in public speeches, stood to respond to his wife's earlier tribute. He didn't use a teleprompter. He didn't bring notes. Instead, King Frederik stood, raised a glass of white wine, looked directly at Mary, and began, "From the moment I met you, I knew the world would never be the same. And now, all these years later, I know my world would never be complete without you." Silence. He went on to thank their children, calling them the living proof of their love. He recalled their first date in Sydney, how Mary offered to pay for her own drink, a moment he said, sealed the deal. And then, pausing, he added, "Mary, you are not just my queen. You are my compass, my calm in the storm. If this is what 57 feels like, I want every year to be just like this, by your side." The room rose in applause. Even those who had seen the couple through years of protocol and palace etiquette admitted they had never witnessed something so personal, so vulnerable, so unguarded from the heir to the Danish throne. In that moment, the future king of Denmark wasn't just a royal. He was a husband, a father, a man who had weathered the pressures of his birthright, and come through it stronger, because of love. It wasn't just Queen Mary and Prince Frederik who shared emotional words that night. Princess Isabella, now 18 and stepping further into public life, reportedly stood and toasted her father with a short, but powerful message: "You taught us that real strength is quiet. That real love is loud. And that real leadership is being kind. Happy birthday, Dad." Prince Christian, crown prince and future king after Frederik, followed with a toast that had the room laughing. "Dad, you're 57, which means you're 1 year closer to finally letting me take the wheel." Laughter rippled through the room. But he quickly followed with sincerity. "But I hope I can one day lead as you do, through example, not instruction. And with the kind of heart you've shown every day, especially to Mom." Even Queen Margrethe, the former monarch, was moved. Though officially retired from active reign, she remains an icon in Danish public life. Her toast was brief but telling. When I stepped down, I did so knowing the future of the crown was not just in good hands, but in loving ones. That is your gift, Frederik. And Mary, that is your crown. It was a rare public acknowledgement not just of Frederik's readiness to lead, but of Mary's place as his equal. And the public, they were watching. The next morning, Danish and international media erupted with praise. BT, one of Denmark's largest newspapers, ran the headline. Mary's Man. A Queen's love letter to the King of her heart. The Copenhagen Post wrote, it wasn't just a speech. It was a vow, spoken not before an altar, but before a nation. Even across Europe, the speech made waves. British tabloids, often critical of foreign royals, surprisingly called the moment a masterclass in modern monarchy. Spanish outlets compared the emotional authenticity to Queen Letitia's own speeches about family, calling Mary Europe's most relatable queen. Australian media, of course, lit up with national pride. For them, Mary is still the girl from Hobart who made it to a palace without ever losing her accent or her honesty. Sydney Morning Herald wrote, 25 years ago, she met a prince. Today, she reminded the world that love, not titles, is the real crown. And yet, the most powerful reaction wasn't printed in ink or posted online. It came from the people. In Copenhagen's Kongens Nytorv, passers-by left flowers on the statue of King Christian V, a symbolic gesture of admiration for the current royal couple. Others gathered at Amalienborg Square, some with Danish flags, others with handmade signs reading, Talk Mary, 57 og stadig forelsket, 57 and still in love. In Aarhus, street artists began working on a mural depicting the royal couple embracing, inspired by the now viral photo of Frederik reaching for Mary's hand during her speech. And in classrooms, teachers reportedly used clips from the speech to talk about love, loyalty, and public duty. One teacher told Danish radio, it's the first time many of our students realized royals are human too. That even queens cry. What Queen Mary achieved that night was more than a tribute. She bridged a gap that monarchies around the world often struggle to cross, the emotional divide between crown and citizen. She showed Denmark that behind the formal events, designer gowns, and historical paintings, there are hearts beating. Real hearts, real love, and in doing so, she may have just rewritten what it means to be a queen in the 21st century. Thanks for watching.